New York? I'm like, you banging that in Rikers, nigga? You nuts. This nigga fucking nuts.
Yo! It's the incredible, the lyrical. You can't be me like Niecy. To see me is gonna take a miracle. I'm driving these MCs hysterical. Touch of this twister, stylistic mixture. Have you ever heard of a slaughter? I oughta start dipping, sipping on that ST gets me to tripping. I don't slips, I bangs with that mad ass dog pound gang. It's a DPG thing.
At 16, Corrupt was just another reckless teen in Philadelphia until he crashed his mother's car and found himself shipped across the country like unwanted luggage. His destination was Los Angeles, a city that didn't care about rap dreams or East Coast energy. The moment he landed, reality hit hard. He wore the wrong shoes that were blue Nikes of some other kid. And then that 13-year-old pulled a gun on him, with no introductions and no chances, just a threat. That's when Corrupt learned fast. LA was different. If you wanted to survive in Crenshaw, you didn't have to be tough, you had to be claimed. The 60s Crips gave him that survival badge, not because he chased it, but because he had no other option. He wasn't game banging for stripes, he was doing it to breathe another day. And yet, while others were trying to dodge bullets, Corrupt was lacing bars. In freestyle battles all over the city, he was wiping out anyone who stepped to him. He didn't just spit rhymes, he weaponized words. Soon, he was walking into battle after battle and walking out with his name ringing louder than local radio. Word got around quickly. Then one day, standing in a random driveway, he locked eyes with another kid about to change hip-hop, Snoop Dogg. They started freestyling without a beat, without any warning, just bars, and something immediately clicked. By the time it ended, Snoop didn't just dap him up, he made a promise. If I make it, you make it. Snoop made it, and he kept that promise. Death Row was already turning into a monster. Dr. Dre had left NWA, Suge Knight was stacking talent like Voltron, and the Chronic was about to become the West Coast nuclear bomb. In the middle of all this chaos, Snoop brought Corrupt in, not as a +1, but as a weapon. With Daz Dillinger on beats and Corrupt on bars, they formed the Dog Pound. Two underrated figures standing in the shadow of giants, but holding up the whole building. Corrupt's voice cracked through the speakers on the Chronic. He was right there on Poetic Justice's soundtrack. Then came Dog Food. The Dog Pound's debut was a war cry. Raw, unfiltered, disrespectful in the best way possible. It hit the streets like gospel and went platinum like it was nothing.
I know you know this girl by the name of Danielle. Body of a goddess, space from hell.
The industry finally looked up, but instead of chasing solo fame, Corrupt did something that would define and haunt his whole career. He stepped aside. He let others shine. Dre once said Corrupt's voice was like an instrument, something that bent to any beat and could still cut through clean. But while others soaked up the spotlight, Corrupt stayed in the background, writing, anchoring, delivering. He was the sharpest sword in the Death Row Army, and he never demanded the throne. That was his genius. That was his mistake. Because Corrupt's solo career started out loud, but landed soft. His first solo album, Corruption, dropped in 1998, just 3 years after Dog Food went platinum. The name was perfect. The content wasn't. It was a double disc, West Coast on one side, East Coast on the other. A creative concept, but unfocused. Critics praised his bars, but nobody played the album twice. Even Eminem, in an early Source interview, called Corrupt one of the deadliest rappers alive. Kendrick Lamar, years later, told Big Boy that Corrupt was the first West Coast rapper I studied for flow.
Know what I'm saying? Miss Lay in the house. That's right. Set it off.
The respect was deep. The rollout wasn't. There were no viral moments, no iconic visuals, no must-hear singles. Just skill, lost in static. His second solo album, The Streets Is a Mother, released in 1999, was darker and meaner. Tracks like Calling Out Names took direct shots at DMX, Ja Rule, and even Nerve Gotti. The diss track got some traction, but the project faded fast. Loud Records was behind it, but they weren't Death Row. He once said in the 2001 Source feature, Snoop Dogg had charisma, Daz had bounce, Dre had vision, I had bars, but bars didn't sell records back then, not alone. Even in the 2001 album Space Boogie, Smoke Odyssey, produced largely by Fred Wreck, had moments, It's Over for example, but it still didn't crack the surface. Corrupt wasn't failing, he just wasn't rising. He was trapped in the middle lane, too good to ignore, too raw to repackage. And it wasn't because he fell off lyrically. He never did. His flow stayed sharp, complex, slippery. Listen to his 16s on Exhibit's Restless, or the Down and Dirty bootlegs. He was still cutting heads, but his production choices zigzagged. One project sounded like Compton, the next like Brooklyn. The audience didn't know what to follow. In a 2005 interview on SiriusXM, he broke it down for himself. Everyone had a lane. Snoop was the star, Daz was the studio, I was the assassin. But assassins don't leave, they hide in the shadows. That quote hit harder than most diss bars. While his group work built legacies, his solo work built question marks. Even when he got distribution deals, first with Antra, then Doggy Style Records, it never clicked. Corrupt stayed with Suge longer than most, even as the death row ship was sinking. IRS raids, lawsuits, artists fleeing, Corrupt kept his flag raised. He was in the building where Suge allegedly attacked Sam Snead. He was around when producers started bringing guns to the studio. He saw the madness. He stayed anyway. And you should know, Snoop Dogg was always more than a collaborator. He was the reason Corrupt got in the door. Snoop gave him records, hooks, verses, shine. But he also gave him orders. And the Foxy Brown walked in and everything else faded out, at least for Corrupt. This wasn't just a fling, it was his ride or die moment. Late 90s, he was knee-deep in death row politics, trying to balance a slipping solo career, Suge's chaos, and an East Coast identity and a West Coast body. Foxy was supposed to be his piece. She wasn't. The relationship started in 1997. Corrupt was head over heels. He told The Source in 1998 that Foxy was the baddest, realest woman he'd ever met. But she wasn't on the same page. While Corrupt was talking long-term, Foxy was still tied to the Firm, Nas, and the chaotic momentum of New York rap. Rumors hit fast and hit hard.
You know what? Most hoes would have left these cats a long time ago. I mean, if your man gave you a gun, what would y'all hoes do?
By 1999, whispers started circulating that Foxy Brown had slept with DMX, allegedly behind Corrupt's back. Nothing was ever confirmed, but Corrupt believed it. And that's all it took. What followed wasn't a diss track, it was a meltdown. On tour with Daz in 2000, he started ranting during interludes, calling names, throwing shots. In a backstage radio interview in Detroit, he said, "You let a dog off his leash, he's gonna bite something." That's what happened. The DMX beef became real. 20 years real. He stopped doing festivals where DMX was listed, turned down collabs, even skipped press runs if X might show up. In 2003, at a Def Jam reunion meeting, both artists reportedly had to be kept in separate rooms. The pettiness turned into protocol. The betrayal didn't just wreck Corrupt's personal life, it blew up his image. In 2001, Nas, during a promo stop for Stillmatic, said in an MTV2 freestyle, "Love will make a killer fold quick. Ask Corrupt how he got clipped." Years later, in a 2020 Vlad TV interview, Corrupt admitted, "I was just embarrassed. I wasn't built for that kind of public humiliation." The relationship died, and it never really healed, even when he and DMX patched things up before X's death in 2021 during a quiet call arranged by Swiss Beats. Then came the drinking, hard drinking.
Then when I got with Foxy Brown, I knew it was real. I mean, my girlfriend is the biggest shit in the globe.
Right. And you guys were engaged.
And
By 2014, Corrupt was spiraling. The death of Natina Reed, the mother of his son, hit him harder than he let on. She died in a car accident in 2012, hit by another vehicle in Georgia. Corrupt had been distant before that, but after, he shut down, locked into the bottle. He admitted during Marriage Boot Camp Hip Hop Edition that he started drinking to disappear. And that's exactly what happened. Gone were the bars, the verses, the crisp delivery, replaced with blurred speech and glassy eyes. He appeared on reality TV in 2020 with his fiancée Toni, and the footage went viral, but not in a good way. One clip showed Toni breaking down. When he's sober, he's the greatest person in the world. When he drinks, he's disrespectful. She said it in front of producers, castmates, and America. Corrupt just looked down.
Tony, how does it feel when you hear him say stuff like that?
I want to bash him in his mouth 50 times. He's a disrespectful. When he's sober, he's the greatest person in the world. But when he's drunk, he does all this stupid ass.
He was drunk on camera, visibly. Tony revealed she had to leave the house daily just to avoid him during his drinking spells. The show's host even asked Corrupt directly, "Are you drunk right now?" He didn't deny it. Tony answered for him, yes. In a later interview with The Breakfast Club in 2021, he admitted he never went to rehab. "I detoxed by walking," he said. "I'd walk until I couldn't think." He claimed sobriety by 2022, but the industry had already moved on. And then, when Snoop Dogg called Corrupt to come through around 6 o'clock one evening, it wasn't anything official. There was no contract, no label pressure, no rollout plan. Just a house in LA and a haze of smoke trailing out the window like the 90s never ended. Corrupt had no clue that Snoop had also called Daz to pull up. In fact, he didn't even know Daz was still in the picture. Their relationship had frayed to the point that Corrupt had blocked him on Instagram, along with his own wife, who somehow got tangled in the same mess. But when Corrupt walked through the door and saw Daz sitting there, dapping him up without realizing who he was, the tension broke before it even had a chance to build. They looked at each other, shook off years of silence, and got to work. The first beat dropped. That song, Smoker, was finished in just 8 minutes. It wasn't just the first track they recorded, it was the first track they had touched together in years, and it set the tone for everything that followed.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. Pass by the spot where the homie serve rocks. Rolling right past, me, Snoop, and Dash.
In the next 3.5 days, they rapped an entire Dog Pound album. What made it more remarkable was what got sacrificed to make it happen. Corrupt shelved his solo album without blinking. The Eastsiders gave up their own lead single to make space. Even Snoop, who was in the middle of preparing a high-stakes project with Dr. Dre, pushed back his own release timeline. That album was supposed to be a monster, backed by Death Row, Aftermath, and Interscope. But Snoop paused it because the Dog Pound energy couldn't wait. Corrupt didn't argue. He let Snoop handle the rollout, even when it involved faking a public Dog Pound breakup to stir up buzz. For a few weeks, fans thought it was over. Blogs ran headlines, Twitter debates sparked. Then the album dropped, and the streets answered back. My Favorite Color is Blue became the unofficial anthem. Produced by Rick Rock, the single wasn't a throwback, it was a statement.
My favorite color's blue, favorite color's blue. My favorite color's blue, blue.
The dog.
These days, he moves different. He's got his hands deep in California's weed industry, running 2 massive cannabis brands, Moon Rock and Gotti's Gold. Dispensaries carry his name statewide. He speaks at expos. He mentors young growers. Still, he says he's not done with the mic. He talks about the next run like someone who finally knows what he wants and what to avoid. He always knew he wasn't the face of Death Row. That was Snoop. He wasn't the maestro. That was Dre. But he was the reason the machine had teeth. And in today's game, where ghostwriters win Grammys, clout outpaces the craft, and authenticity is just another filter, Corrupt's story feels even heavier. He didn't fall off. He got left behind. Not because he lost the bars, but because he never played the game. Isn't it so?